You're listening to Street Life, a podcast about street photography with John ST and Mark Davidson.
You're listening to Street Life. I'm Mark Davidson, a street photographer from Melbourne, Australia, and with me, as always, Adelaide Smiley Boy, my mate, Mr. John ST. How you doing?
I'm doing really well, thanks, Mark. How are you doing?
Very well indeed. Very well. I've had a fun-filled afternoon. I went to Bunnings and bought a broom. It's been, and the sun's shining. The weather's really nice. I haven't gone out to shoot street today, so it's a bit annoying. But yes, domestic duty's called, John. So,
well, you know, that happens to the best of us, Mark. Well, it's good to see you've got a broom. That's nice. Well done. Cheers. Normally we go for something like that to Bunnings and we come back with a crap load of other stuff.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
My wife loves Bunnings.
It's a good shop, isn't it?
It is, and they're nice, and you can get the old sausage sizzle going and stuff, you know.
Sort of Disneyland for adults. Yeah, it's...
Yes, sort of, Mark. Maybe they need you on the marketing team.
Hey, by the way, our last episode, The Round Table, some really good reaction from listeners. So thank you, everyone who took the time to write and get in touch. We'd never done that format before. I think it worked really well. It was great having the three guests on, and people really responded to that topic, didn't they? So, street photography being soulless. So a lot of people disagreed, agreed. So yeah, it was great to hear everyone's thoughts.
Some people said they shouldn't say it's soulless. They should say something else. You know what I mean? So, but it was nice that it gained a reaction from people.
Yeah.
But then that's always one of those topics, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's one of those perennial
polarizes people. Yeah. So thanks to our guests for having a great conversation with us.
Absolutely.
Maybe it might be something we need to look at doing again on other topics.
I think so. Yeah, I think it's we'll do a few more of these going forward. So if anyone has some topics they want to suggest to us, get in touch. We're always happy to hear from you. So
drop us a line. Love messages. Love it. Love it. Makes me feel special.
Speaking of special, we have a very special guest today, John, all the way from South Korea. I'm really looking forward to this one. So why don't you go and do the honours?
Today we're joined by artist Paul Estabrook. He's a Korean-American lens-based photographer currently living in South Korea. He uses candid moments and chance encounters to share a personal journey that often explores the intersections of identity, race and politics. Argus's work has been awarded by the Magnum Photography Awards, Sony World Photography Awards, LensCulture, BJP, and countless others. He was awarded first place in Life Framer's Street Life Award, judged by the iconic and sometimes controversial Bruce Gilden.
Ooh. It
gives me great pleasure to welcome Argus to the Street Life podcast. Thanks for joining us, Argus.
So happy to be here. Thank you so much, folks. Really cool.
Argus, thank you so much for joining us. It was lovely to meet you. I'm a great admirer of your work, especially many of the projects you've done in Korea, which we will get to later. But first, I guess we'll just start where we normally do. What inspired you to pick up the camera and take up photography?
Everybody's got a different origin story, so to speak. I always wanted to, when I was a kid, I wasn't very good at academics. I grew up in this rural farm area, and there was no people out there, and kind of a smallish town. But I found my way of connecting, was doing art. And there was a small, tiny art program in the high school, and I had a kind of disagreement with the art teacher one day, and I wasn't allowed to continue going to take the art classes. And I was really bummed out about that. I was interested in writing and journalism too, but my writing skills were not great at that point. But luckily I had a really cool teacher, and she saw how I was bummed out. She's like, why don't you, if you can find a camera, why don't you take some pictures, and I'll let you get, you can not worry about this writing credits. You can just, and I was like, okay, I'll try. And they had a dark room for the yearbook, but it was completely not utilized. And they let me end up doing an independent study. And I wasn't planning on going to college. And it's just last minute, I had people believe in me, and I just had fun in the darkroom with film. And the next thing I know is just hey, why don't you go to school for this? And I was just I didn't know you could go to school for this. This is awesome, But it was playing with light really that attracted me. in the dark room. Like I really started, like the first person that like stuck out to me was this guy named Jerry Ulsman, who was kind of doing like Photoshop before there was Photoshop, and I saw like this, like somehow he had a book and kind of explaining like how he did things or whatever. And it was like multiple enlargers. And I was trying to make like cut out like pieces of paper, and stuff. But yeah, it's just been this thing that I started feeling like this connection, playing with light, thinking in terms like once I played with the enlarger, I was like, oh, how does the lens work? How does my eye work? And it just became fascinating. And that, so I kind of I was lucky that I failed into it at a young age and had like people, be like, oh, hey man, that's kind of neat. Why don't you keep trying? It's like, oh yeah, it's neat meeting other people making neat stuff.
So if you lived in a small country town in America, where did you start? What did you start photographing first? Because there's a big step from that to where you are now, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Well, I won't get into the whole thing because it was like I ended up at a school called RIT. Got into they're like in Rochester and they're pretty big. And they had Kodak was like the sponsor of the school basically. But it was a big tech school. It wasn't vibing with me. And long story short, I ended up getting arrested and kicked out. Actually, it's a longer story. It's a long story.
Rebel.
Well, it was it's a longer. It's just if we had the age of social media, I think there would have been things would have maybe. But it. Long story short, everything worked out fine. But at the time, it wasn't fine. But luckily, I've been really lucky that I've had a lot of people help me and believe in me, and like just a cool community. I've fallen into like really cool communities and met really cool people. So I had this advocate who was my professor, and I wasn't doing that great in that school either. But he was like the photography history, and in that class I was doing really well in, and he somehow knew the head of photography at the only other school I had applied to in Virginia. Which is it's now I think defunct or something, but it was just an amazing school. It was called Virginia Intermont College, and it was the right place for me. All the professors there, it was like a love of photography. It was tiny, and it's in Bristol, Virginia, and it's really small kind of. It felt more like home when I was there. But getting to what you're saying is like those folks there were very into like 70s like color formalism, Stephen Shore, and William Eggleston. When I saw his work, I mean, it really clicked with me. It still does. I just love his work so much. And I'd walk around the town, and I'd be like, perfect town for learning about William's work in. And I'd just be like, oh, I can see it like this. Oh, I can see it like that. And then, trying to practice, color, like how am I seeing color, like formalism, like, oh, here's like a splotch of blue right here on this building. And then there's like, oh, and isn't that interesting that there's a spot of blue right there? And then, really neat coincidences like, oh, and this woman with a stroller just walked by and it's got the same blue color. How crazy is that? Click, 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 and so when I was studying in the States, I was really loving, and I still love color photography, and color formalism. It's just, I really dig it, but when I got into Korea, it was a kind of a different story. I felt like in Korea, when I first got here, actually, I wasn't even trying to do too much photography. I was just trying to figure myself out. A lot of, I think it happens to a lot of Korean Americans. It's like, oh man, like I didn't know any Koreans like, where I grew up in this rural town, and like I can't speak Korean. I'm like, what is this? What am I eating? It'd be like my mom would be like before I left, she'd tell me all this stuff. She'd be like, oh, when you get there, you got to remember you can't drink and you can't smoke because That's a big no-no, Korea. I was just like, don't worry, Mom, I will not dishonor the family. And like I literally, I got off the plane. The first thing I see is just like, or off the bus, and people are just like smoking. I'm like, what the heck? Like, first night, people are like, we're going to the bar. I was like, what the heck? It's just like, it's like those street photos, Japanese street photos of like the passed out businessmen. I was just like, yeah. But so like for the color stuff, like when I got here, like the reason I started really getting interested in black and white, it was like too overwhelming. The color was just too overwhelming, and it was more of a way to, I look back at it now, but I really realized it was like I just need to look at things a little more plainly, more structurally, and just see what is that about? What is that about? And then it just kind of went on to like, oh, I can play around in black and white in a way that I never could before, and even in the dark room, because it was like digital black and white. I was like, oh wait, how long can I expose this? Like, what is this? Oh, rad.
I guess it was really lovely to hear you talking earlier about how you had some people in your life who really encouraged you and mentored you and set you on this photography journey after that initial setback of your teacher kicking you out of the art class, which is disappointing. So, I have read that xenophobia was present when you were growing up in rural America. And so how important was it to you to find photography?
Like kind of just like the art kids, I think a lot of, or creatives in general, when you feel like you meet a group of people, a small group, you find like your tribes as you get older. And for me, photography was that. It was a way to be like, meet friends from all different backgrounds. Everybody, we had this common thing. It's like just being photo nerds, and being able to speak your speak and get people who get you. And that's the lovely thing about photography, that, why I think we end up, the people who do it, stay with it, because it's not really about your camera. It's not even, I mean, I want to say it is about your work too, but who wants to like, we all have family, and well, I think both of you have family members who are photographers, but I think we have family members who aren't photographers, and you try to be like, I went out and I took this amazing shot, and they're just like,
yes, so true.
Like, and then you're like feel a bit deflated, and then but then you'll like, your friend will be like, oh hey, will you help me edit some work, and be like, oh yeah, let's go to the coffee shop. And then after, helping your pal, it's like, oh, what are you working on? Be like, you show a couple photos, like, yeah, this is what I'm just like, oh, dude, like, rock on. And you're like, yes, but let's, so I think it's the community. And so being in the rural area, you got to find your people, even here in Korea too, man. Like, I mean, there's a bit of stereotyping here because I'm half, and I don't, I'm not, but there is this kind of thing where it's like, oh, are you going to be like an authentic Korean? You can't speak Korean, like halfy, like what does that mean? Whatever. I mean, I'm figuring that out for myself. I like to talk to other Korean Americans, and we get to have our talks and stuff. But it's like, beside that, talking with the like Korean American groups or other Koreans or Western, the larger group of us out there, it's like, I'm talking to photographers and other artists, because everybody's coming from different places, and then you're just like, oh man, like, oh well, I'm feeling this way about stuff. Oh man, I'm feeling this way about stuff. And then you look at each other's work, and you're learning and having these larger conversations, and that's the thing about it. It's like we get to do this beautiful thing that's a private moments usually. Take these photos. Try to get into, like, for me, I try to get into a flow state, and then that's a private thing. But then later, and even later when you're editing work, again, private thing. But then you get to share these private things with other people, and they get to do it with you, and you're like, oh man, I'm not so alone. They're not so alone, And I think that I like to think that that's what we're doing it for.
And that's quite an important thing that you mentioned, because when I moved to Sydney, it was exactly the same. Like what we do is normally, and we've spoken about this a few times with other photographers, is a lone wolf type of thing where we go out and we go out and photograph what we want to see and how we see it and in our own time and blah, blah, blah. But it can be quite lonely. So part of the journey of being a photographer, like you said, is the community. Like anything that we do is just a thing, but it's the people that you share it with that makes it a little bit more special. And even when you're in those moments where you probably have them as well, Argus as well, self-doubt, it's good to have people that just get you over those little hurdles that you might have in your mind, you know?
100%, 100%. I mean, I suffer from anxiety, a lot in my private life. Getting older, that was a big thing for me in COVID. Just before COVID, I had just dealt with so much loss. Like my dad passed away pretty unexpectedly. I was going through some other stuff. It ended up informing, I worked through it with my camera. It started informing some of the work that I did at the time. And then during COVID, I had like this I think it was like a 2-month period. Things are a little blurry because it was like, we all remember that time. We're trying not to. It's like the hand sanitizer is like, no hand sanitizer. I got vodka. It's both. Wiping my hands on. Oh, a little tricky. Like,
that helps with anxiety.
Let's not worry about the toilet paper. We're good with the vodka. I got hand sanitizer and a way to forget about time travel forward. But there was like this, I think, a 2-month period where it was like my uncle and aunt got COVID and they were in that first wave, that past wave. It was just like, it's like, hey, have you heard? Heard what? They're gone. They're going to be gone. And I was like, what? Yeah. And then I had 2 friends had like this, like one had a rare form of cancer and then another one like stage 4. And I was like my dad, I was like, what is this? And so it was in a good place. And I was going through a lot of anxiety. I didn't really realize how bad it was at the time, But the thing is, what COVID did for me was I didn't like it, obviously, but it made me really think and look at my work. And I think prior to COVID, this is kind of like some of the stuff I think I was hearing on the Roundtable podcast that you were preferencing or mentioning earlier. I was trying to I wanted to throw this work out there. It was like I was posting all the time. I felt like I was posting very heavily. I was trying to make a name for myself. I felt it was important because I think also if you're like an Asian American or whatever, you're like, there's only one Korean American welcome at this table. I gotta be the first, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
There's only one. And, so you're even looking at like other Korean Americans like, oh man, we share this commonality, blah, blah, blah. And like, I got to get through that door first though. Love you, mate. It feels very differently now, but at the time it felt like, oh, I got to time's a wasting, sunlight's burning, I got to do this. It's go time. Yeah. But COVID made me feel like, hey, there's a lot more important things than photography, or the reputation for photography. Photography is important, but this whole thing being in the forefront of your brain, I want it, but it's there, and you're like, oh, I want to have a good name. I need to show this. And then it's like, no, I don't, which is, I've been pretty successful with competitions and really lucky with that. And I feel very grateful that I've had some really good stuff. But COVID, it was just like, I was just like, why kind of am I doing this? And then it's just like, oh, it's for me, and starting to realize things like, oh, it's got to connect with my soul. This has got to be about my soul. And I felt like there was a body of work that I really hadn't shared with other people because it was during this kind of this hard time. And it was the work in Japan that I did where I was trying to kind of run away from myself. But during COVID, I really looked at that work for the first time in a while, put it up on the wall, got like the 4x5s or whatever, like the prints from the Walmarts or the CVS down what I do is I put what's it called? Not tape, but I put Velcro buttons on them, and then I get like a giant piece of cardboard, and then I put the buttons on there, and then I just put them up on the wall in a place. I try not to think about them too much, but it's like put them on there in a place that I know I'm going to see them every day, and then walk by, move them around, and eventually, and then just do some deep thinking about stuff. Long story short, I know I'm going on and on, but like we've got to taking a step back was good, and trying to work through it is amazing. And we have this ability. I don't know if that's where we started. Sorry, when I get going, but that's important, to me. And now, I'm not posting every day, like I was before. And I think though but you get to talk to people, even like talking to you guys like this. It's important and beautiful,
You've said a lot there. I guess you've said a lot, and there's a lot to unpack. No, very interesting stuff. So you've mentioned about our podcast and the round table, and you spoke about it. Now, looking at your work, I doubt very many people would say it is soulless. No, but you started listening to our podcast, and we were having a conversation just before we started recording, and you had some very interesting things to say. What are your thoughts on what we discussed in the podcast on the round table about street photography being soulless?
Well, what we were mentioning prior was I really try to look at photography more like music. I'm a failed musician myself. And, when we're young, there's only so many chords that you can play on the guitar. If you're learning music, you're going to do like some very like basic songs, like early Beatles stuff, maybe like CCR, like Creedence Clearwater Revival or something like that. Just really C, G, D, but, and you're going to play those songs, and everybody's kind of has to go through it. And it's the same, I feel, with photographers. It's like, yeah, you're going to see the same sunsets. You are going to see the same structures. It's going to be unique enough, and it's going to be different because you're seeing it. But just because you've seen it a bazillion times before doesn't mean it doesn't have soul. What the important thing is that you saw it at that moment and that you captured it. Now, how other people see it, that's up to them. You can't, like, I think it was in your podcast, it was like, you can't control the audience. There is what's this artist's name? Marcel Duchamp. And yes, the ready-mades, the staircase guy. One of the best books I got when I was getting my MFA was like this giant thick book, and it was just like artist statements and manifestos and stuff like this. And he had one in there about like the urinal, the ready-mades. And there was something in there that it has just stayed with me forever. And it was about like that the artist's job, it's like art really isn't created until the audience connects with it. That's the moment that art, the circuit kind of is fulfilled. And it's the same, it's music, photography, all of that. So it not having a soul, it's like, of course a photograph can't have a soul. It's a print, it's on the screen, but you have the soul, and if other people, like if my mom saw like a beautiful sunset picture that I took with my phone, she's probably going to resonate with it more than one of my weird blurry drag shutter things.
Exactly.
So, right. So, I mean, and this equation too, it's like so much of the stuff that we're seeing is propagated by algorithms, by social media. And so you don't have we also don't have control of we don't know who the audience even is. It's like you're throwing a paper airplane out, that's got a photo, and something like, maybe like 50, 60 people see it. And then if you're lucky, like maybe 100 or so, or 200, if you're really lucky, or you have a good day and you're just like, whoa, man, like that's wild. A lot of people saw that and a lot more people than I thought. Then that makes you feel a little weird. But the soul thing is about it's human beings and the connection and making that circuit, So we all have to go through it. Like what I was saying earlier about William Eggleston, walking around Bristol. I was trying to shoot what I saw of his work, at the time. And I was being influenced by him. Of course, I wasn't him. I wasn't I wasn't friends with Big Star, or I think that's, I wasn't, there's no red roof, not roof, ceiling with a white, there was nothing like that. But I was still very thinking of the color patterns and trying to match that up. And that's how you learn, So I think really the difference is like the social media aspect. The greats didn't have it, like I was mentioned on your podcast. And so the games just changed. But the important thing to remember is it is a game, and don't take it so seriously.
Yeah.
That's what I had to do in COVID, was really be like, yo, not that I want to take a step. It was like the world was like, take a step back, everybody, right now.
Yeah.
Like,
And I guess you actually said something really interesting too. I remember Bruce Gilden said, a successful photo is one where you can smell the street, and you said you like to create photos that make a sound. I'm like, yeah, I can see that in your work. They do. They're highly energetic. You feel almost like you're at a concert, in some of your work. And I found that a really interesting take. So what do you mean by, photos that you want to create photos that make a sound?
What we were mentioning, I can't remember it before the podcast or if just now, but it was like, it's, as an artist, I like this idea of giving yourself a freedom, because you're going to fail straight out the door.
Yeah.
So because you're going to fail, then why not really fail upwards or have fun with it, And so knowing that you can never, there's an impossible puzzle, understanding that the puzzle has no answer. There is no answer. There's no right way. There's just no it. So having that mindset gives me the ability to have fun with it. As a failed musician myself, I like to think of my camera as a guitar. I wish I could make the photos have sound, and I'm very attracted to energy. I think if people look at my work, they can relate to what I'm saying about like feeling energy, being around energy. I'm trying to not even just portray energy. Like, for me, what's really important is getting into a flow state. I mentioned this to my friends and other photographers that I meet, because it's been mentioned to me in casual conversation, like, oh, your hit rate's really good. It's like, well, thank you. But the thing is like I feel like when you're in a flow state, everything's good because you've shut off your mind, and okay, so it's not even about being good. It's like when I get back, I was just like, I don't know if it's good or not. It just looks neat. It just looks kind of neat. I know I might have said my friends make fun of me. It's like, oh, you always say, oh, it's too neat. It's neat. It's neat. But that's really how I feel. I want to be I want to surprise myself. First and foremost, I like that feeling, like when I was a film photographer, learning of, what's on this film. Did drag shutter back? Did that come out? Man, I really messed up that exposure. Oh, whoa, look, I messed up the exposure, but look at all these neat. Oh, I left the film in the bath way too long. Look, it's disintegrated. Whoa, look at this. And, I think it's like these, as I've gotten older, it's like these strategies to free ourselves to have fun. But with the music, it's like, I'm trying to feel this. It's impossible, but I'm trying to think of myself as this, how do I say without running on and on and on, but I like this band called Fish. Podcast viewers, do not turn off. No, I really do, because and I like jazz too. Also, don't turn off. But it's the improving, and the one of the main guys in Fish, his name's Trey, and there was this interview where he's like, when he's in it, he feels like the notes are coming to him, and he's just kind of going along and convey. When I'm shooting, I try to get into that kind of flow state myself in my own way, because I don't want to think too much. It's like I already have, it's the brain is so loud. It's going to happen. You're going to take a good picture. It's just going to happen. So, and you're going to just take a bad picture too. It's just going to happen. So turn off and enjoy, and you can't control this. And once I'm in this flow state, I'm like, things just start being there. And I don't even know if it's me. I just feel good about it. Sometimes I don't feel good, but then I get home, I'm like, oh, yesterday was really fun,
So I just want to expand on a few things that you've mentioned just then and in your previous answer to a question. Now, looking at your images, people would go, wow, this guy exudes confidence and he's afraid of nothing. He's right in amongst it all. But you mentioned how you suffer from anxiety. Okay. So when you've got the camera in hand and you're in that moment, do you feel that your anxiety gets pushed to the back and it's not so much to the fore? And the other thing I want to ask about that is, you're probably one of the people that we've had on the podcast. You're probably one of the people that have done more project type work, maybe other than Jesse Marlowe or somebody like that. And discussing from the roundtable, this has come forward as well. That project work, there's a next step, a series or a project. Now, with your anxiety and your project with This Is Not an Exit, which is quite a deep and I'm sure very personal journey for you, because it was the passing of your father. You documented that. How difficult was it for you to do that when you said that you were in a very anxious state? Because most people would like to keep something like that private. So what made you think about I know there's reasons why you want to document it because it's your passing of your father, but want to share it as well.
Well, my relationship with photography and with this physical object of the camera, is a very, I've gotten to the point with my cameras where they don't feel really like cameras to me anymore. I know that there's this talk, it's like, oh, it's got to be an extension of your body. But for me, it's like, this thing has been in my life now, and it's always at these heavy points in my life. And it's been like, oh, it got me kicked out of school. It got me into school, another school. It's like this magic key. I made a lot of friends through it, a lot of opportunities. It's been, and for me, a lot of times it feels like this shield, with a peephole in it. And, I feel when I go out the door, and if I don't have a camera and I'm going to work or whatever, because I don't find work as a photographer. I mean, I'll do some commissions here and there, but it's far in few. Having the camera as this kind of peephole in this thing, I can ignore the noise. The other extraneous stuff, it's just like it's gone, so to speak. And I'm with it, but I'm also, it's not that the world is isolated so much as I'm isolated, and I can be in this place where I'm hearing the sound of like a jackhammer, out there. I'm hearing like a kid cry on the subway or something like that. I'm at a concert and the lights are just going and it's crazy and stuff. And I hear some notes and everything's wild, and I'm just looking through the viewfinder, And then if I'm lucky enough, I'll take the viewfinder away, and then I'll start waving the camera around and popping the flash and kind of try to start dancing. I know, but if you see me out, you'll see it. If I'm feeling real good, I'll start taking chances with it because I'm feeling better. And I'm feeling like now the isolation that started is like now I'm even feeling I'm not looking through the viewfinder. I'm through it now, and there's like this connection. So the anxiety, so also on the anxiety with taking pictures of my dad, that was exactly, I think, what was going on with that, because I didn't really want to kind of believe what was happening, but I also needed to connect. And also I didn't know how to effing talk about it,
Yeah.
And I felt like I needed to explain to people in my orbit, oh yeah, my dad passed. They're like, I'm so sorry. And I'd be like, yeah.
Yeah.
And be like, but you don't know. So I can't talk about it. I can't talk about this, but this is how I felt. And then they saw it, and they're like, oh man, I feel you. I feel you more now. And then what's been good about that is other people who had experienced, it was my first time with grief, really. And then other people are like, I saw that work. I'm a photographer too. Like people I didn't know on social media, they'd email me and be like, hey, it touched me, blah, 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 blah. I went through this. And then it's like connecting through the shared experience, even though it's my family, they had their own thing, and that was helpful.
Yeah.
But some other people would be, I mean, other people in my life have asked, like, how did you take those pictures? I don't know, actually. Like, I remember doing it, but if I don't think I could do it again. I was like autopilot a lot of it.
Yeah.
And actually, I try to be on autopilot a lot, but I don't know. I just feel that it was something that happened, and I feel very lucky that who I was at that time, like past me, had the ability to articulate it, because I still look at that stuff and I'm just like, oh man, I that did feel that way, because you forget with time, But anyway,
do you feel the camera was a shield for you to be able, or a cloak to be able to experience being in that situation with your father without?
I think I think a lot of times it's my cloak for
everything.
So many things, it is an excuse to like talk to people that like the wrestlers, right? There's some wrestlers just like, hey, I don't know wrestling. You guys are doing this cool indie stuff. It's not my world, but I have a camera. Can we talk? Can I be part of your world? You know what I mean? Right now I'm really interested in this idea of performance. So this also links back to the stories stuff or projects right now. I've noticed a pattern recently, and I think that's important for me. But when I'm making projects, a lot of time it's like I don't know that the project is happening until I look back at the work and I'm like, oh, I'm seeing stuff here. It's like the work is telling me about, I don't know what I'm doing, but then it's like, oh, I'm pattern matching, and like, oh, and out of the just like kind of the analogy of seeing the stuff rise out of the dark room, the print forming out of the chemical bath there. That's kind of the same feeling with the projects. It's like, oh, look at this picture. Oh, look at, isn't that weird? Isn't that neat that there's some similarities? They're talking to each other. When I put these next to each other, oh wait, there's a third one. It's part of it, and it's like, what is that? And it's like, what does it mean to me? And it's like, so it's like letters are forming, or words rather, and then I know something is going on when I feel like there's a half a sentence there. What is the rest of the sentence? And then the rest of the way, my mind is a little bit more clear, and then I'm shooting a little bit more with intention of knowing that. But usually about halfway through, I don't know. But recently with the performances, I'm like, oh yeah, why am I interested in performances? Oh, this person is doing it because they're not getting paid to do it. This person this person's got a dream. They're doing it for the love. And then I'm like, oh, am I doing that too? I think I'm doing that too. Yeah, okay.
Pretty much.
What I mean? And so like I'm really interested. And then so it becomes like it's like a student, you become a student of yourself. There's no book. You're making your book, and the nice thing about the inherent quality of photography is we get to share that, and other people get to share chapters of their lives. And then that, like I said, that's magic, more than the photos. But I like the photos too.
Argus, I'm so glad we're talking about your projects. And look, if anyone hasn't seen Argus's work, jump on his website. All the work's there, all the different projects. I think Losing Face is one of my favourites of yours. It's incredible work, and I know that Reflections Inside the Soul Metro got you a lot of attention. You won a lot of awards for that, and also Fair Adjustment. I want to bring up that because we've spoken about the project you did with your father, and this one seems deeply personal too. I don't think I'm talking out of school. You had a relationship breakup, and you went from Seoul to Japan. Tell us about that. It appears from the writing that you've accompanied with that work that you just jumped on a plane and started photographing as soon as you touched down in Japan, and you got some astonishing photos. So tell us how all that came about.
I'll a little peek, into the back of the curtain of this, walnut shaped brain of mine, or rather the beating heart. So what was happening was I had been going back and forth from America and Korea to help with my mom, because of the passing of my dad. There was a lot of hard things going on in my life. My wife, my then wife at the time, I found out that she was, seeing somebody else, during this really hard thing, I was just like and again, photography, I just remember there were times where I'd just be like, it's you and me, pal. Holding onto the camera, it's you and me again.
Yeah.
Here we go. But I had been lucky enough that I had won this kind of scholarship coupon thing from the Magnum LensCulture Award. And one of the prizes was that it was like, oh, you can do a workshop for free,
Right.
And so all of it fell at around the same time. And it was even it was kind of like a coupon. They didn't print it out, but there was a kind of thing that it's like, it's good for a year. And I was just like, around the same time, it's like, I got a month. So I didn't even, so all of it happened. And it was like in Japan. So I had the ability, things happened, where I wasn't I was able to just go because I had been leaving school and already. And, when you're in it with messed up, kind of grief stuff and people feeling not knowing heads or tails about life because of loyalty and whatever. I wasn't being honest with myself. I was like, oh, maybe maybe things are salvageable. Maybe I'm not messed up in the head right now. I'm not feeling this way. But then I was just like, oh, so I'm going to go take this workshop. I'll be back. But really, you got this other side that's quieter, that's just being like, you got to get out. You got to get out of town for a little bit, but luckily, again, the camera in my life was just like, so I had this quote unquote excuse, for myself that and then I went there, but it was also, that was just part of it. I took a whole month, maybe I can't remember, maybe it was a little bit more, and then just before I left, I realized that there was going to be another workshop with a different Magnum photographer. And I was just like, I'll do that one too. I'll just, I'm not going to say which one was better.
That could cause a world war.
I'll give a hint if anyone looks at the dates, the first one, but no, but for me, it was it was secondary. The workshops were really secondary. I was there. I was just hopping into Airbnbs, hostel, whatever hotels, and the thing is that even though the workshops are happening, it didn't make a lick of difference about any of the advice or anything that anybody was even telling me at that time, because I wasn't home. I wasn't there. I was there, but I wasn't there. I was in my own world, taking pictures. And there was this kind of sense, because it's this workshop and you have to show work. So, if you're sharing something, even if you're not feeling good, you don't want to be again, a song. It's I don't want to play my G, C, and D, I'm feeling it. I'm feeling something. So here's a song that I'm feeling, it's the beginning of a song maybe. And then I shot all this stuff, and I was trying to just get lost. I just really felt that way. I just wanted to get lost. I liked that. Not that I liked it, but it was it was how I felt. And it felt like the city was like this giant metaphor, breathing metaphor, feeling lost. I didn't know heads or tails. I
Mm.
felt like I didn't know heads or tails. A lot of the rules were just out the door, too. And I was just like, man, I'm in the rain. I don't know, like somebody's jumping in puddles, like, man, I feel drenched. He looks drenched. Take a shot. He's not even in the shot. It's just his leg. Good enough.
Yeah.
Because that's how I felt,
Yeah.
and and I couldn't look at, I mean, I could look at the work, but then it was like during COVID, that was one of those bodies of work. It was like, I finally really thought of it. And then, so if people are interested in doing projects, or if you've applied or whatever to like shows or whatever competitions, everybody knows there's like an artist statement. And I'm really lucky because I come from an art background. So writing artist statements was really ingrained. So I actually, in a way, think that's a real talent to write artist statements.
Yeah.
It's its own thing, and they don't teach it to you in photography school. That's more in the art realm. And all the advice for artist statements have started going out the door to me too. So even that artist statement was like, what? I'm just writing how I feel. That artist statement's a lot different than others, and that was because of COVID, And now going forward, like I'm just like, all of it has to be like that. I just need to be feel more like of my own breath coming out. Don't worry so much about it conforming. It's like we are all so unique individuals that it's like, don't worry about it. That's why I tell them, don't worry about it, because by being quiet, you're going to be loud, kind of. You know what I mean? You can't help but be yourself. So just do it. Breathe more. Try to feel okay about breathing more. And the more you breathe, the more it comes out, and the more of it's going to fall on the page, whether it's written or on some back of a camera or on the screen. So yeah.
Yeah, and allow yourself to be a bit vulnerable as well, I guess, Argus, because, at the end of the day, you'll find that no one actually really does judge you, because it was quite a raw, honest statement. And, as you said before, you just got to, I guess there comes a point where you just got to go, fuck it. I'm just going to put it out there and, come what may.
Absolutely. And there is a bit of like catharsis in it. And so like, I feel like that's out of my system now.
Yeah.
Like I don't need to, I don't even know how I did that. A lot of this stuff is like, I don't know how that happened. You know what I mean? And I feel good that I don't kind of know how it happened. I know the technical stuff. I remember everything about shooting the shots, but then there's so many moving gears that after the fact and some time passes and you're like, you threw it out into the world. It's doing its own thing. Sometimes I get like real nervous about stuff. And I like the fact that it's talking. I don't have to talk for it anymore, like, so to speak, unless we're, in our communities and stuff. But it's like a big pressure. It's like, it's alive. It's doing its own thing. I get to do another thing now, and I think that's a real healthy thing about art. That's the beautiful thing about art, that we can do. It's like, one of, you guys are Australian, you got Nick Cave.
Yeah.
I love Nick Cave, man. And he said something, just this interview, it was like, music's one of the, I hope I'm not misquoting him, but what I'm kind of remembering is something like music or art is like I think it was music, one of the last things that allows us to have a transcendent experience, and I'm like, oh, and so art, let's say he's saying art or in photography, and at least for me, that's what I've really figured out for me. It's like, there's more. I have to feel. I just do. There is more, about this universe, about why we're connecting with a camera, why we're looking at other people, why do we look at strangers? It's not to like really make a cool photo. I mean, I think that's a secondary secret happiness because we get to play with composition and play our games with exposure, but really it's about feeling more. That's what it's about. And so it's like when you get to do that, it's the magic. and letting to be more than you thought that you could be, but having faith in the energy and other people, I think that's the really beautiful thing about life. And I think, again, having that camera, that special little, my fellers, really just one or two now. I'm sorry, they found some other friends, some of them along the way. Yeah, they've really helped me, and we all have hard times in our lives, man. And if you haven't, you're real lucky, because it's probably, sorry, you might be due. You might be due.
Well,
and
I have to say, Argus, talking about that series of images that you took in Japan, very different to your other work. And I know I read your statement about it and how they came about. And I know it was a traumatic experience for you, but you can see that in the images, because it almost felt, I said to Mark beforehand when I was looking at it, I felt like I was looking at something from the Hangover movie. Like it was just this wild fucking trip of some person. I don't know if you've explained it was over a month, but if it was a day, a night, you were just on this wild trip, like you were having an out-of-body experience that you didn't give a shit about anything. and you probably didn't, because of how you were feeling. And you just touched on it there. The images that you capture is how you're feeling in the moment. It's how you see the world. So people say, oh, if you're in a bad frame of mind, don't go out and take photos, because that's going to come across as negative. But sometimes you've got to have that, because that's your feeling. You're expressing yourself through your images. And honestly, I really surreal. I honestly felt like I was right there in that moment with you, looking at those images. That's how I felt, like I was one of the dudes from The Hangover on your shoulder, and we were all on a massive piss up, and we were just tearing the world apart. That's how it looked. And
well, what you just said, for me, thank you so much. And what you just said was like, what you just communicated was like, to me, was like, I felt like I was right there with you. And it's like, so thinking about that, like the way I kind of view time is maybe a little wacky. I don't think we have time to go, like, literally, no pun intended, we don't have time to go into that. But I like to think that, like, having faith that you will be, the things that you want to talk about are going to be talked about, and that you were there with me. And this is the first time we've met. And just so it's like postponed friendship or coolness, and I was going through that time, and I was alone. But now, in this weird compression of art-based photography, whatever you want to call it, I wasn't alone, because now other people can talk about it. And I can do that too with other people's work. Something else that was interesting that you mentioned, something just fired up in the old noggin here. I did this workshop with I hope I'm saying his name right. He's a Magnum dude too. He's like Jacob Sabal. He does, he's the really amazing black and white photographer guy. I only got to talk to him for like 2 or 3 days, and it wasn't like I was talking to him. There's a big group of people, but he said something that really stuck with me, to the group, not to me, but like to the group, friends with all these people. No, he said, "Don't take a picture of a dog in the cage. Like, be that dog." In the cage. I want to see what the dog is seeing, and that really stuck with me. And I was just like, yeah, I mean, yeah, duh, like, yeah, but it was, sometimes you need, someone to articulate for it to real stick to stick. And, going forward in my life, it's just like, well, I'm not the dog in the cage. I'm me. I gotta take pictures just like me. Just, that's it. I know it sounds so simple, but it's these things that just echoes and exercises of just doing it again and again and letting go. And again, about like, street photography being soulless. It doesn't, if a kid's got a camera and it's the first silhouette, quote unquote, cliched silhouette photo of like two legs and everything else dark and stairways and architect. Yeah, we've like you can see that photo. I just told you, we're all seeing that photo right now.
Yeah, exactly.
But that kid's never seen it.
Yeah,
That's the first time he saw it, man.
definitely.
And that is the thing. And that has soul. That has soul. So it's like I again, it's all exercises. It's all practice. It's all just playing a song, figuring out your heart, how you put your whatever, and just being lucky enough that you can share it with other people. I mean, that's really the really cool thing, and heavy subjects are easier to digest. We're very lucky, but when you have art in your life and strategies to convey things and try to transcend hard times, when you have that available, that's very, very lucky. I think very few people, I don't want to say very few people, but some people don't have something in their life like that, and so I feel very grateful to be in like our creative community and, be able to talk my talk and stuff,
It's well, with your projects, I mean, we've just spoken about some really personal ones to you, but you've also done a lot of documentary style projects as well. We mentioned the wrestlers before, and obviously some politics that emerged out of Korea as well. So how do you land on your subjects or your project topic, and how do you know when it's done?
Oh, well, some of it again is like the pattern matching, but I kind of know you have to get out of the way of the work too. Like something, my sister, she's a amazing artist in her own right. And I'm lucky enough to have my family's really small, but I'm lucky enough to have somebody in my life like her, as we getting older, that has a shared vocabulary, in art. We've talked about it like this idea, it's like a seed, and then it's like your responsibility. You're growing it in the ground, and then you're watering it and you're watching it grow, and then you let it tell you what it needs, So it's like thinking about that way, the pattern matching. What does it need? What is it saying? I don't know what it's saying. I don't know what it's saying. Like, and then just informing, like it's going to inform you. You try to take steps back, like literally take steps back by putting it onto the wall, Don't look at it for a day or two. Walk away from it, come back, and be like, oh yeah, I kept thinking about that. And, being like, just doing that sort of thing. And it'll tell you'll know when it's ready. It's like a lot of Korean moms that you're always just like, Mom, how did you cook that? Tell me the recipe. She's like, you just put like this much in, and then you just put like this much in. And it's like, well, how much? Tell me. It's like, you just taste it. And you're like, just how much sesame oil do I put in? It's like, just enough. You're just like, what do you mean? I feel the kind of same way with art. I know it's not, but really, it will tell you. And who knows if it's even finished? Like, I just know it's finished for me.
Yeah.
That's how you just have this feeling that you're like, I don't think it's talking to me like in the way that it was talking to me before. It's more solid now.
Mm-hmm.
I think it can stand by itself, so to speak. I don't think I need to have this relationship with the work that I've been having now. Now it's ready to set sail, that thing. But also stuff like the politics stuff, that was a different time in my life. Like with the protests, that time in my life, it was just like, oh, that protest was like every weekend.
Yeah.
Like for like 5.5 months in Seoul. And it's like you couldn't really escape it if you went. So it'd be like me and some friends. Well, we would just like, anyway, if I talk too much, I'm just going to meander. But like that time was just like outside of the giant societal changes I felt that was in the air for a photographer, it was just like every photographer and his cousin was out there taking pictures. People who weren't photographers were taking pictures.
Yeah.
And again, I just felt like I didn't know what was going on. I was just in the crowd, you know, and I was just trying to take pictures of things that I felt like, yes, as a photographer, as a creative person, looks neat, looks unusual, like photo opportunities. You know when they pop up. We all know when they pop up. But then again, like looking at the photos later and being like, and talking to some Korean friends, be like, why are people so upset? Like, I don't know. I'm Korean, but not really Korean. So help me know. You know what I mean? And then making that body of work again, I felt like a little weird. I was like, is this okay? Like I'm not a journalist, but
Yeah.
I felt this way. And if I think I'm trying to put this out as it's just me. I don't know, but I think this is how people were feeling, but this is how I was feeling. And so and it seems, you know, luckily, you know, people, it resonated with people. Yeah. And I was real lucky with that. Because that was really one of the first big leap. All of a sudden, like from that, it was just like I felt like before little things about like, oh, hey, how are you doing? Like, oh, I saw this little thing that locally, you know, but then that came out and it's just like, that was when I started seeing my name a little bit more here and there. Yeah. And then I was just like, ugh. I mean, there's a part I was just like, oh, look at me, about Google. You know, but it was also, like I said, I think a lot of the some of those anxiety issues started coming up actually around that time too. It's just like, oh, look at me, I'm so cool. It's like, am I cool?
I'll let John ask a question, but I've just got something very specific. I don't often do this, but the picture of the horse in that series, Losing Face, about the protest. There's a dude on a plastic horse. What's going on there? So it's like, did he bring his own horse to a protest, or what's happening?
You know, people were making their own. They were getting real creative. That was the thing about that protest, was like, I don't know exactly how things were being funded. It seemed very well funded. There were people like donations. Like it was a church, and then they even had like I have this one photo. I don't know if it's on the website. I might have taken it out because it just might anyway. But it was like donation boxes, and that's how it kept running every weekend, like every Saturday. And then there were concerts were actually happening on the mall. So it became like this kind of event, and people bringing their children, and everything was chill. And then like the sun would go down, and then like families would kind of go home, and then like the real kind of deal protest was coming. It'd be like a different vibe. It wasn't always so, but it was just like a different time, you know. And just again, like I didn't know what was going on. I was just trying to figure things out. I'm sorry, I might have lost the lead here. The question that we're talking about.
No. I think you've answered. They just brought their own stuff, and you know, this guy's riding a plastic horse. So I just thought that was fascinating.
Oh, the plastic.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So yeah, the plastic horse. I just remember I was in this crowd, and I think it might have what was the guy's name? The street photographer. We all love him. I'm really bad with names. That's why I tried. Like I'm like, I don't want to say anybody's name. I'm gonna say it wrong. What's the guy? He's the good guy, bald guy.
John Marwitz.
Yes, there we go. I think I'm not sure if he said it, but somebody might have said it. I don't. But it's like the nice thing about taking photographs of a crowd, or if it's a parade or a protest or something. It's like you can speed it up if you walk the other direction. You can slow it down if you like follow it.
Yes,
that's real. That's real, man. And so I remember seeing this guy with this horse. I can't remember if it was being pulled, but there's like it was there suddenly, and I just remember kind of like backing up, like backtracking. I was like, oh, what the F is this plastic horse and this guy on it, this older gentleman, and he's holding up this thing, and I was just like, I better shoot this real quick because I don't know when this is going to be moving. Like it was moving, but I was moving, and I shot like I forgot, like maybe like. I was able to pop the flash like 3 or 4 times, and then it was gone. Like either he got off of it, and I think somebody else might have gotten on it, but it was gone. That moment was over, you know, because I think actually I'm remembering it more. I think people were getting on it after he left to be like a photo. I think people were seeing me take pictures of that guy, and then it was becoming like a photo opportunity for friends and family because the horse was just there.
So when you take a photo like that, Argus, right? And Mark mentioned it about how crazy it was. How important is the composition in creating the image, or is it more about just capturing what's happening? How do
Mm,
you see it? Do you look at it and go, "Oh, there's a dude on a horse there. Am I going to like frame it up and I'm going to like slow shutter it down and I'm going, wah, and the flash is
yeah.
going to make, or is it just there's a dude on a horse, click?
Just react.
You know what I mean? On a plastic
It's
horse, not on a horse, on a plastic horse.
well, as I was mentioning, like the 70s color, like a lot of times when
Hmm.
people, when I talk, they're like, oh man, I didn't, because a lot of the people have never seen like a lot of the color work, of the student work and stuff, but it was so ingrained, like the rules of formalism, and not just with the photo school, but also taking art classes. And I can't paint or anything, but going to museums and looking at sculptures and reading these ideas of composition, and being friends with other creatives and musicians, and all these different ideas of composition, right? And then you learn, it's like they say, you learn the rules so you can break the rules, you know? And it's just so ingrained. And of course, I have a wide angle lens. Actually, the camera that was given to me had like I think a 24 millimeter. And this is how much I don't know about photography. For years, I thought it was a 28 millimeter. Like my friends in photo school would be just like, there are other lenses. It's like, your lens zooms? Like, I mean, I was just like, I'm like lucky. I didn't
Hmm.
know but it was just like, I don't know, but I know what I like. I know what speaks to me. And I like not just photographs, but art and music. I know what I like. And then again, what we're saying about you practice the rules, And then when you have energy, it's like what I was saying about like the musicians, of like they say like they feel the crowd, it's like if the crowd's good, the music's good, they're feeding off of each other. So it's like you're in
Hmm.
situations with like the protest in the crowd, like the crowd energy. And you got a couple half seconds for that composition. I see it, I'm like, oh, that looks good. And that's enough. I hope I
Yep.
got it. I hope I got it. There's one out of maybe four or three, who knows? I got it. If I didn't get it, too bad. But the thing is again, there are no rules. I don't know. I
Hmm.
don't know this. Did it look good? I think it looks neat. I think it looks neat. Do you think it looks neat? Oh, you do? All right. Well, let's be friends. Let's go. Let's have a
So,
drink.
Well,
Let's look
so
at what
close
things you
enough is
made.
good enough, Argus. Is that what you're saying?
Always, always. I
well,
mean, really, no. However you're feeling, that's all it
Hmm.
is. I mean, there's no right and wrong. Like,
Wrong. Hmm.
if I show like, if you got like 4 or 5 pictures that all look the same, right? Inherently, one is going to stick out to you. But the thing is, we've all done this. You can shoot that for way more than 5 shots.
mm,
You could shoot that with digital. You could shoot that same thing. And I've done this, like, but we've all done like 50 shots of the same thing. And then you get it down or whatever, one or two really speak, and then you try to show it to your pal, and you're just like really stressing which is the best shot. And then your pal's like, dude, they're the same shot. They're both good. Like, just pick one. Just pick one. You're like, right, right, right.
well,
You know what I mean?
I actually read that you're not a decisive moment kind of guy. You've sort of rejected
Yeah.
that term. So, look, explain that. So, why don't you like the term decisive moment?
Um, well, the decisive moment is like, you can tell I'm taking a lot of mindfulness courses right now for my anxiety, but it really does speak to me. It's like, the moment's always happening.
Yeah.
There's an illusion,
Mm.
with the camera. Well, that's what's so cool about it. We half a second. Oh yeah, I took a slice of time. Well, the time's still going on, brothers and sisters, it's still going on.
Mm.
It's like the whole fact, like I'm an insomniac. A lot of times, I'll see the sun coming up, uh, and it's just like that's it, man. It's just we just spun around, this thing, and it's the same day. It's just this illusion of the night falling upon us. It's the same day. I think Prince said something in this interview where he was like, oh, you don't believe in birthdays? He's like, oh, because there's only one birthday. It's like, it's like there's no birthdays. It's like, and then he said something like real catty, like, and that's how I look so young or something like that. Like, well, but really, I kind of feel similar in that. It's like it's the same day, but it's nice that we give ourselves breaks and stuff. So
you seem like quite, from what talking to you, you seem like quite a positive sort of person in the way you see the world, even though you might have your baggage behind you. You want to capture the essence of what's happening. But is there anything in the street photography that frustrates you, that just gives you the shit?
Press on.
So I just remember, it was like the decisive moment, just real quick. The decisive moment is just like, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
It's up to you. The decisive moment is happening all around us. It's for you to choose. And I think we put a lot of pressure on ourselves as photographers to capture the quote unquote decisive moment. And we just need to free ourselves up. It's like, oh, I missed that shot. Well, don't worry about it so much. Like, another cool shot's going to happen.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it so much. I mean, if you're a journalist and you're really doing this for a very specific reason, yeah, that pressure's on, but if you're doing photography, and I think a lot of people who are street photographers are doing it, particularly, is because there's this impulse, but then you get out there, and then all of a sudden there's like this idea of like, oh, I'm not Bresson, I'm not Merowitz, and nah, like, just don't worry so much about it. Don't be, there's one Gilden, if you want to pop people in the flash. It's funny, I love flash photography, but I can't do that so much the way that other people are doing it on the street. Like but people are kind of surprised. I usually talk to people before shooting it. Like, I'm not always in this mode of, I don't try to be a stealer. I think it's a lot easier for me to just try to have conversations, not just with people, but like the environment. You get your groove, like I said, flow state, whatever. And a lot of times there'll just be somebody there. You're not in like the protest thing, but it'll be like somebody there, and I'll see a composition, and we know that person, like for me, is not the focus of the photograph, but they just happen to be like this compositional element. Maybe there is something else going emotionally, but maybe you just mention something, or maybe your presence mentions something for you, and they get comfortable, and then you have permission, or that permission isn't needed, and you shoot. And so you don't have to go hunting for that decisive moment, because you are the moment. We are the moment, and then you just relieve yourself of it. If you want to hunt, that's fine. Like, it's just not, I can't do that. Anyway, to get back about the decisive moment. But anyway.
No, it's fine. That's good that you got back to it. That's good. That's great.
Getting a little nervous.
No, it's fantastic. So we've blown that hour to the Scheisenhaus, and it's gone by so fast. I honestly, we could speak to you for about 5 hours. We always finish the podcast with one very cliched question. We haven't said it for a while, John. But
feels like forever.
It does. If you could go anywhere in the world to shoot tomorrow, where would you go and why?
Oh, I cheated because I do listen to the podcast. But I forgot you're going to ask it. But I think. I think it's just here. I mean, I'm here, in Korea. I'm doing it. I'm happy to have the limited time of the weekends to do my own thing. Try not to get bothered with working on the side to fund my freedom, my weekend freedom. But I feel so grateful that I'm in Korea right now, and if really, I would just like to not have a job. Yeah. Just go shooting. So yeah, that's my. I hope that isn't cheating.
No, not at all. And just on that, I don't, correct me if I'm wrong, but none of your projects have been done in America. Is there a reason for that? I guess you just live in Korea. You don't get back so often, or there
are some shots that I did while I was home recently. Not so recently, about a year ago. I was not feeling super connected, honestly, to the world. at that time because I was going through, like, I think we all go through phases. I was still shooting. I had my little Ricoh on me. So it was like kind of this thing. I just kept it on my side. I didn't have my quote unquote nicer camera. Leica, sponsor me. Hurry up and do it.
Yeah, come on.
Rico, you too. This is your chance, Rico. Like, throw me some stuff. Really? No, not really. Really? No. But I had the little. But I was shooting it, and I was spending a lot of time with some of my friends in these rural areas. There was something that started forming a little bit there, but it wasn't enough to. The sentence wasn't completed, like I was saying. I felt like there was a start of a sentence, and you can, if you go on my Instagram, you can even see them right away because they're the ones that are in color. Some small town stuff, and I started seeing something happen. But around that time, I really had to finish up getting some licensure stuff for my job. I had to take care of help take care of a family member who I really love and care about. So some of this stuff, but if I had stayed there longer. And didn't come here, perhaps I could articulate something photographically. But a few of the photos were good that I liked, and I was lucky with one of them. I was just like, I'll just throw this one out there, and then I got a nice response, and I was like, oh, cool. I'm feeling all right. I can't get back on the bike. It always feels like that, I'm just happy to have the photography thing, and if I'm not happy, I'm happy that I got the camera. It's just like we just gotta keep going.
Absolutely. I'm sure you can pick it up later if you head over. But Argus, thank you so much for having a chat to us. It's been an absolute pleasure. I've just been absolutely hooked in, loving everything you've been saying. So thank you so much for taking the time to have a chat.
Now, just before we go, Argus, you told us something earlier. You've got an announcement to make.
Yeah, I am. I'm going to be making I think a monograph, a book, a neat little collection of work with iShot. So I'm feeling a little nervous about that too, but I think it's going to be. I'm hoping it's going to be groovy. So if folks like the work, I think in the next little while, check out iShot's social media because I think they're going to be talking about it.
Can you say which body of work you're going to be printing, or is it sort of a collection, or?
What I'm learning is they have a very specific way of doing things, and so it's going to be, with my thing, it's like they are taking the helm of the work that speaks to them. So in the beginning, I was like, well, I really want to have like creative control, and they're like, oh no, we this is how it works. I was just like, oh, okay,
yeah, we're good.
So, but it's very fresh. We're working on stuff now, and hopefully it'll be good.
I'm sure it'll be fine. iShot know what they're doing, and it'll take the pressure off you a bit. So just let go of the reins and let them run with
definitely. it. I'm going to let them run. I'm just like, the more I thought about it, I was like, perfect. You guys do it.
Fantastic.
Well, if Leica or Rico are listening, he's being published now. Time to get a bit of sponsorship out there.
Exactly.
Send them get them on there. Ambassador them.
Just make it available so I can buy one even.
Well, congratulations, Argus. I'll definitely be picking up a copy, so I'll keep an eye out for that. And as I said before, thank you so much for taking the time. I had an absolute blast talking to you. I really resonated with a lot of what you were saying, so I really appreciate you taking the time and having a chat on the podcast.
Again, thank you so much. It's such a pleasure. Thank you.